Starting with SD, also called standard definition. This is the old school resolution, 640 pixels wide and 480 pixels tall. Back in the day, this was normal for TVs, DVDs, and older cameras. But today, SD looks very blurry compared to modern screens. The main thing to understand is pixel count. Pixels are tiny dots that create the image. SD has a low number of pixels, so the image has less detail. On a small screen, it can still look okay, but on a big TV, it starts looking like Minecraft, without the charm. For comparison, SD uses less internet data and needs very weak hardware, but the image quality is not great. It is useful for slow internet, old videos, security cameras, or small displays. But for gaming, movies, or YouTube today, SD is basically the grandpa resolution. Next is HD, also known as 720p. This resolution is 1280 by 720 pixels. It was a big upgrade from SD because the image became much clearer, wider, and better for modern screens. 720p is called HD because it gives decent quality without using too much internet speed or hardware power. This is why many YouTube videos, live streams, and budget TVs used 720p for many years. It is also still common on smaller phone screens, cheap monitors, and low-end laptops. Compared to SD, HD looks much sharper. But compared to Full HD or 4K, it can still look a little soft, especially on large screens. For gaming, 720p can help low-end PCs get more FPS because the GPU has fewer pixels to render. So basically, 720p is like the I'm not rich, but I still look decent resolution. Now we have Full HD, or 1080p. This is probably the most famous resolution in the world. It has 1920 pixels horizontally and 1080 pixels vertically, which gives a much sharper image than 720p. 1080p became the standard for TVs, monitors, YouTube videos, gaming, and movies for a long time. Even today, it is still very popular because it gives a great balance between quality and performance. For comparison, 1080p looks clean on 24-inch monitors and smaller TVs. It does not need crazy hardware, and most graphics cards can handle gaming at 1080p easily. It also uses less internet bandwidth than 4K, so streaming is smoother. The downside is that on large screens, like 55 inches or bigger, 1080p may not look as sharp as 4K. But for many people, Full HD is still the safe choice. Not too weak, not too expensive, just reliable. Next is QHD, also called 1440p pixels. It has more pixels than 1080p, which means the image looks sharper and cleaner, especially on monitors. 1440p is very popular for gaming monitors because it gives a nice upgrade in image quality without being as heavy as 4K. It is like the perfect middle ground. You get better detail than 1080p, but your graphics card does not cry as much as it would with 4K. Compared to 1080p, text looks sharper, games look more detailed, and videos feel cleaner. But compared to 4K, it is easier to run and usually gives better FPS in games. For screen size, 1440p is great on 27-inch monitors. That is why many gamers love it. It gives sharp visuals and high refresh rates at the same time. So 1440p is basically the smart gamer resolution. Now we move to WQHD, usually meaning ultra-wide 1440p. The common resolution is 3440 by 1440 pixels. It has the same height as normal 1440p, but it is much wider. This type of resolution is used on ultra-wide monitors. Instead of the normal 16:9 shape, ultra-wide screens usually use 21:9. That means you get more horizontal space. It is great for gaming, editing, programming, multitasking, and pretending you are a hacker in a movie. Compared to normal 1440p, WQHD gives you a wider view. In games, this can feel more immersive because you see more of the world. In work, you can open multiple windows side by side without needing two monitors. The downside is performance. More pixels means your GPU has to work harder. Also, not every game or video supports ultra-wide perfectly, so sometimes you may see black bars. WQHD is basically for people who looked at a normal monitor and said, nice, but make it wider. Now we reach 4K, also called UHD, which means ultra high definition. The resolution is 3840 by 2160 pixels. That is 4 times the pixels of 1080p, so the image is much sharper and more detailed. 4K is very common today on TVs, high-end monitors, YouTube, Netflix, gaming consoles, and cameras. If you watch 4K content on a big TV, the image can look very clean and beautiful. Compared to 1080p, 4K gives much more detail. Small text looks sharper, movies look more cinematic, and games look amazing. But there is a cost. 4K needs more internet speed, more storage, and stronger hardware. For gaming, 4K is heavy. Your graphics card needs to render millions of pixels every frame, so FPS can drop unless you have a powerful GPU. For TV watching, 4K is excellent, especially on 50-inch screens and bigger. 4K is basically the, wow, I can see every detail resolution. Next is 5K, with a common resolution of 5120 by 2880 pixels. It is not as common as 1080p or 4K, but it is popular in some high-end monitors, especially for creators and professional users. 5K gives even more detail than 4K. It is excellent for video editing, photo editing, design, and productivity. One of the big advantages is that you can edit a 4K video while still having space around it for tools, timelines, and menus. Compared to 4K, 5K looks sharper and gives more workspace. But compared to 8K, it is still more reasonable and easier to handle. However, 5K monitors are usually expensive, and you need a good computer to use them properly. For gaming, 5K is not very common because it is very demanding. Most gamers prefer 1440p or 4K. So 5K is basically the professional editor with expensive coffee resolution. Finally, we have 8K, also called UHD 2. The resolution is 7680 by 4320 pixels. That is an enormous number of pixels. In fact, 8K has 4 times more pixels than 4K and 16 times more pixels than 1080p. This means the image can be extremely sharp, especially on very large screens. 8K is mostly found on premium TVs, professional cameras, and high-end production setups. But here is the problem. 8K content is still not very common. Most movies, YouTube videos, games, and streams are still mainly 1080p or 4K. Also, 8K needs a lot of internet speed, huge storage space, and very powerful hardware. For gaming, 8K is extremely difficult to run smoothly. Your GPU will probably look at you and say, "Bro, why are you doing this to me?" So 8K is amazing, but for most people today, it is still overkill. It is the future is here, but your wallet is crying resolution.